Thank you.
Members of the media, thank you so much for coming out and joining us. As you all know, this Friday is the deadline for the State Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy to accept final public comments on whether or not Enbridge, the company responsible for the two largest inland oil spills in U.S. history, should be allowed to build an oil tunnel underneath 20% of the world's fresh water. I have here behind me some of the tens of thousands of comments that have been delivered to the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, and that some of these are letters being delivered to Governor Whitmer. Now, Governor Whitmer has heard from her constituents about this literally since she was running for office. And we're still asking the governor to weigh in with a straight answer of whether or not she believes in an era of increasing climate change, we should trust a phenomenally untrustworthy corporation like Enbridge with the right to build an oil tunnel underneath 20% of the world's fresh surface water. What we're asking from the State Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy is for them to deny Enbridge's permit requests. They have an easy path to do this based on the fact that EGLE's duties under the Great Lakes Submerged Lands Act require EGLE to look at the environmental impacts of building an unprecedented tunnel underneath the Great Lakes. What Enbridge doesn't say in the fancy PR that they put out all across our state is that if built, this would be the most highly pressurized tunnel in the history of the world. At 17 bar pressure, this would have the pressure of 17 atmospheres crushing down on people working in the tunnel. The pressure of 5 atmospheres is enough to kill you. Workers building this would have to be in bariatric suits. The technology that they're using here is untested. The rock quality is, as one expert hydrogeologist who has spent his career digging over 100 miles of tunnels here in the Great Lakes Basin put it, the worst rock quality he's ever seen for drilling a tunnel. In the 10th of the industry recommended geotech research that Enbridge did, 1/10 of the research, roughly half of the rock samples they took were rated between poor and very poor for drilling material. They should be anticipating methane in the tunnel profile, and they are not. They should be anticipating heavy water flow into the tunnel during construction, because their own research showed that the porosity of the rock is actually more similar to gravel than it is to bedrock. They are not anticipating water inflows, and it is up to our State Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy to hold Enbridge accountable, to actually look at the facts about whether or not it should be permissible to drill an unprecedented oil tunnel under the Great Lakes, and to stand up for the people of Michigan by saying no. And after our press conference today, we're going to walk over here to Governor Whitmer's office behind us and drop off thousands of letters from concerned residents across the state of Michigan asking her to take a public stand, and again, let us know if it's her position that this is appropriate to allow such a phenomenally distrustworthy company as Enbridge, with their history of oil spills across our country, to dig an unprecedented oil tunnel underneath the Great Lakes. And I would like to hand it over. We're going to take media questions at the end here today. Next, I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Nicole Kiwe-Biber, who is our Michigan organizer for Clean Water Action focused on Line 5, and an Indigenous member of the Little Traverse Bay Band of Ottawa Indians. Nicole, please hold these mics.
Bonjour, Nicole Kiwe-Biber, Indigenous, Nakwejong and Dojaba, Waganakasino Dawa, Nishnabekwe, Mishike Obananang the Dago. So, as I hope people are well aware by now, Michigan's 12 federally recognized tribal nations want to see Line 5 shut down because it is a direct threat to our sovereignty and way of life. When the 645-mile-long pipeline was built in the early 1950s, there was certainly no consultation or information provided to the Indigenous Anishinaabe peoples of Michigan, despite clear constitutional language that treaties are to be considered the supreme law of the land. Today, a democratically destructive and treacherous through line is plain for all to see. The willingness of elected governments to enshrine the interests of profiteering corporations above the voices and sustained well-being of the people and the waters upon which all living beings depend for baseline survival. Everyone who relies on clean water to drink, to bathe, to fish, to enjoy life should be aware that this proposed tunnel scheme is rife with geotechnical shortcuts, engineering red flags, piecemeal permitting that fails to fully interrogate the implications of failure, and instead relies on the sunny forecasts and reassurances coming from the financially biased foreign oil corporation, that only seeks to keep the $1 million a day toxic tar sands oil pipeline pumping. At 73 years old, the entirety of Line 5 is more than 20 years past its projected lifespan and poses the threat of a rupture to numerous bodies of water, surrounding communities and wildlife. The 4 miles laying on the lake bed is just too obviously stupid to ignore. So Enbridge copied a rejected idea from an engineering class project, made a backdoor deal, and dressed it up as environmentally responsible for the public. The tunnel is a phony solution. Excuse me. And even as inadequately written, fails to meet the standard for an EGLE water permit, as the impacts on the wetlands and environmental water quality and nearby residents would be well beyond minimal. Our Anishinaabe ancestors already have had final resting places desecrated. Our whitefish, more than human relatives, are already struggling to survive the consequences of centuries of foolish decisions that favored profit over respect and care for the water. Our state government should respect treaties with tribal nations, not encourage 99 years more of foreign oil profits at the expense of our Great Lakes. Big oil executives like the ones at Enbridge expect, they feel entitled to a return on investment for their campaign contributions. Thank you. They expect a return on investment for their campaign contributions, their seemingly benevolent sponsorship of community events and projects, their focus on propaganda that is equal parts greenwashing and fear-mongering. Such unseemly, unjust influence must end. Every one of these letters being delivered today were written with clear purpose, with love for the Great Lakes, and with the hope that at long last we will be the ones to influence decision-making on behalf of the next 7 generations. We need to shut down Line 5 and reject the Enbridge tunnel scheme. Next, it's my honor to introduce Erica Bolden, Michigan Climate Action Network. She'll talk more about these lovely fish you see in the background.
So many, I didn't realize. Awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak about this today. I will make it brief just because we've run into some weather, but these are fish that were folded not just on behalf of Michiganders, but the entire country plus. We collected over 86,000 fish in representation for the amount of people who do not want this pipeline in the Great Lakes. This is a collected effort on a number of different organizations across the Midwest that got together and made sure that they could get people to show up and show out, and that's exactly what they did. This is a representation of how people feel not only in the Midwest but across the country. We have a responsibility to protect the Great Lakes, and this is just proof that not only do our constituents and our residents here know what's best, but they know what they want, and this is not what they want. So our hope is that in this symbolization, we can deliver this, just a portion of it to our elected officials so that they can understand just a portion of how the people across the country feel about having a pipeline in the Great Lakes, and that is they do not want it. So, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, everybody. We are going to head across the street to the governor's office to drop off the letters to the governor in just a moment. But before then, I want to open it up to questions from the press. And I also did want to point out, for years, I know you in the media and those of us watching at home have heard from Enbridge about how without Line 5, they'd have over 200 trucks crossing the Mackinac Bridge every day to deliver oil. That's been proven untrue by Enbridge's own experts in court. However, even the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, in their study recently, identified that for the 6 years of tunnel construction, over 230 additional truckloads a day will be crossing that bridge to help build a Great Lakes tunnel that only benefits Enbridge. Now I'd love to open it up to any questions before we head across the street.
I'm wondering your thoughts on impacts to the surrounding environment, some of these visual or sound, kind of side effects of construction that would be going on for up to 6 years, according to the Army Corps report.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So the question was about the environmental impacts and the local impacts of tunnel construction. One thing we know for certain, the dark sky park right there would no longer be a dark sky park for 6 years. They'd have over 400 foot high cranes with lighting 24 hours a day. That would destroy the Great Lake, the dark sky park right there. As far as the truckloads, again, the Army Corps has identified over 230 truckloads a day. More local impacts as far as the millions of gallons of slurry that Enbridge is seeking permission to dump into the Great Lakes would be devastating for the surrounding community as well. Not to mention the potential vibration impacts and water resources impacts from drilling a tunnel.
Can you just make it clear, what are the final barriers to preventing Enbridge from digging the tunnel right now?
Enbridge needs permits from the State Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. There's an ongoing case before the Michigan Supreme Court around the MPSC permits which have been granted, and then they'll need the federal government to issue permits in accordance with the Army Corps' EIS as well.
And so these petitions are going to do what?
These are letters to Governor Whitmer. About half of these are letters to Governor Whitmer from constituents asking her to take a public stand. The other half are comments to the State Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy that we'll be delivering right after this, letting them know how residents feel about this project.
Right. So EGLE can only really reject permits that break the law, not based on the content they agree with. So what are you guys pointing to that says, they can actually deny the permits through the legal issues?
Great question. How can they deny the permits through the legal issues? I'm going to be brief with the weather, but the Great Lakes Submerged Lands Act requires that requires that there is minimal impact to the surrounding environment if they're going to issue a permit under the Great Lakes Submerged Lands Act. And we've seen, even from the abrogated and shortened Army Corps EIS, that there are substantial local and environmental impacts, which gives EGLE all the teeth it needs to deny the permits here.
I know the initial plan on the notice was to meet with Director Roos today as well. Have you been able to set up that meeting?
Yes, several of us met with Director Roos and his team at EGLE this morning to express our concerns. We're glad that EGLE was open to having the conversation, and we hope that they follow through and do their duty to protect the Great Lakes for the people.
So is the EGLE permits having to do with the actual construction?
Yes.
Or does it have to do with the tunnel?
Well, the construction would be construction of the tunnel. So the EGLE permits, the Great Lakes Submerged Lands Act permit, would have to certify that there would be minimal impacts or no impacts to the Great Lakes bottomlands and soils beneath the bottomlands from this project. And then the wetlands piece would similar minimal to no impact on the wetlands after looking at substantial alternatives.
And so what you were saying earlier about the gravel and stuff, so what's the worst thing that could happen with them digging a tunnel under the straits?
The absolute worst thing that can happen is something that we saw happen, and use your imagination from here, but in 1973, one of the biggest industrial accidents in Michigan history was when Detroit Water and Sewage Department was drilling a new water intake tunnel under Lake Huron, and they hit a methane pocket that was not expected. somebody dropped a drill and the resulting explosion killed 23 people inside the tunnel. If they hit a methane pocket here, which again, 1/10 of the industry standard geotech research was done, and they identified dissolved methane in groundwater. They're drilling on top of a known shale formation that they know contains methane. If they hit an unexpected methane pocket and there is an explosion, that could not only result in the deaths of anybody working inside that tunnel and the flooding of that tunnel behind them, but could also have surface impacts. They plan on building this underneath an operating pipeline, and they know that it's not bedrock between the two due to the water porosity that they found. So the worst impacts would be that impact of everybody within the tunnel, as well as making the existing pipeline leak because of the ground shifting underneath it.
One more here, similar to the last question. Just wondering your thoughts on the impact on the surrounding ecosystems, land and water. I see you have the fish behind you, so just kind of your thoughts there on potential impact on wildlife.
Yeah, I know some of the biggest concerns around that, not only the wetlands and the waters themselves, but the impact of bentonite slurry on populations like the whitefish, which spawn in the Straits of Mackinac. Bentonite slurry, while it's not toxic, does coat fish gills, and when spilled in rivers by Enbridge in Minnesota back in 2021 when they were digging line 3, caused some fish die-offs, some fish kills. We're very concerned about that happening to one of the largest parts of the tribal fishery in Michigan, and the whitefish themselves. Glad to take other questions.